Friends, good morning. We are being live streamed. Everything is up and about. So let's begin our session for today. Can I have the presentation, please? So, friends, I thought we should talk about a very, very interesting subject called clean energy, clean environment. A lot of things are happening in this space, and these kind of things are quite interesting because over the last 20, 30 years of uh, industrial development and growth and everything else that's been happening, right from logistics to transportation to whatever you and I have bought, right from a small little pen to a aeroplane ticket and everything that we bought, it was all a kind of progress. And what happened is in the last 20, 30 years of progress, the progress that mankind made was so much that we were generating a lot of heat and releasing that heat in the environment. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, for example, a very simple example is when you have your air conditioning on, right? And if you're actually standing outside where the external or outdoor unit is placed, you will feel in literally 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, within like 20 seconds, the kind of heat that is getting generated. And that heat, when everyone's generating it together, all accounts for global warming. And that's where all that heat rises up in the atmosphere. We learned this in school. What happens? Hot air rises, water vapor is created, and then extra rain, and then floods, and all sorts of climatic disasters that happen. All of that purely because of global warming. So the point is that the world was progressing, and we made a lot of profit and a lot of money as the world was progressing. Today, we've come to a stage where the biggest concern of everybody in the world is the planet is getting too hot. Global warming is becoming very difficult. You can't work, you can't travel, you can't, you go to Europe and you have to stay in the room the whole day because it's just too hot, something which was unimaginable, etc. Workers cannot work outside. All these effects are happening because of the fact that the temperature is rising. So now our endeavor, our meaning as an individual, as our companies, as a country, and as the world, the global shift now is that we want to reduce the temperature. And what is going to happen is as we reduce the temperature, there is a kind of a green revolution which is happening all across the world. It's not something new. It's not something which is going to start. This is already happening. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that how does this connect to our portfolio is because while the growth was happening, we didn't really worry about anything. We were just making our investments as usual. But now, when we've reached that inflection point from which we cannot go higher, we cannot get warmer, we cannot allow the planet to become warm, and we have to go down in terms of temperature and energy. So we have to make our environment clean, green, and healthy. So that's the entire endeavor. And while that is happening, there is going to be a massive profit opportunity as the whole world, A, stops at this temperature, and B, we start working towards how we reduce this temperature as the time passes by. All right. So that's the whole theme of today's presentation. We move forward. Before we move forward, we just want to come to a very quick disclaimer. Come back, come back. Where's our disclaimer? Which we need to show always. Yes. So before we move any further, so this, this is like a regulatory requirement. So I have to read this every time that there's no advice, there's no product discussion. And, the disclaimer is also changed as the circulars emerge from SEBI's, ground. We have to also make these modifications. But basically, all said and done, purely education, just facts and information, just knowledge sharing, no product recommendation. So thank you for that. And let's basically move forward. Okay, let's move into our presentation now. All right, so we spoke about this. Let's move forward. So let's sort of, we've set the context, right? The context is now that we want to go down in temperature. First, we want to stabilize and then go down. Now, in this journey, a lot of things are going to happen. The biggest thing that is happening, and which I'm sure all of you are aware of, is solar. So, because that's amongst solar, wind, and other types of renewable hydrogen and electric, etc. This is apparently the most easy to scale and easy to manage, and we have so much of sunshine, so why not use it? And that essentially is something that the whole world is looking at. Now, look at some numbers in front of your screen. Um, just last year, $2 trillion plus invested in this area. So, like I said, things are already happening. $2 trillion, enormous sum of money. I mean, it's almost like 2 lakh crores and plus. Look at the power sector, 4,600 gigawatts. Okay, this is what the world expects its capacity to be by 2030. Pretty much, it's more than double. Uh, when we put this into perspective of India, we are somewhere at about 200, 250 right now. We want to go to 500. So that's the plan. So out of this 4,600, 500 is going to be India's contribution, which is almost 10% of the global power will be generated by Indians, because it is you and me who are going to consume this power. So we are going to be essentially, in other words, 10% of the world's consumption of power. Can you imagine? It's a humongous amount of power which we are going to consume. Okay, some very other interesting other points I want to talk about. Let's move to the next one. All right. Okay. So okay, just to sort of again, for the people who are not very familiar with what is this green energy and what's the big deal about it. So basically, what happens is there are two ways to generate energy, right? One way is to what we call as fossil fuel. We burn coal, we import oil, and from oil we process it, and then we basically convert them into oil and petrol and diesel and all of that. But what happens with clean energy is we're going to use sunlight, we use wind, we use water, which are pretty much available to us and which is given and offered by nature. We are going to harness that, and by using those natural resources, we then create energy using technologies like solar, green hydrogen, etc. So what is happening is whatever was available freely is available freely. We're going to try and make more and more use out of it, and whatever was excavated and whatever was mined and whatever was dug out of the earth, we are going to reduce our dependency on consuming earth's natural resources, but we are going to use the free resources that are available. So that's the shift, and there is no choice in order to do that. So now, before we move further, can we show them the report at this point? There is a very interesting report which was brought in by International Energy Agency, some very interesting facts, and I want to point those out before we actually move forward and we move into India. All right, so let's go right at the beginning, and then this is a very interesting report. We have done some markings here which we want to share with you, right? Okay, so can you please take us to the report? Go scrolling down. All right, okay. Now, this we already spoke, right? The global power capacity is going to double. See, now this might all seem very boring, and why are we talking about clean energy and environment? But think about it this way. Everything that is happening in this space, India is going to be a very big participant. More than 10% of everything is going to happen in India, which means Indian companies, which means Indian companies that are listed, which means Indian companies that are in this space. So I'm going to slowly, impress upon you the fact that this is the need of the hour, need of the decade rather, and in that the huge role that India is playing. Okay, so just setting the context, but some very interesting facts for you to understand and see what's really happening. Okay, so we want to increase our capacity. We want to make our energy, or basically capacity of power, double in the next literally 5 years. By 2030, we want to do it. And like I said, there's no choice. All the countries around the world are in one way or the other moving in this direction. Right. So what is happening is, now this is very interesting. Keep moving your cursor as we speak. Renewable power capacity, as you can see, can you bring your cursor, is going to grow faster in the next 5 years from 25 to 30 than it did over the previous 5 years, which is why we are very excited about investment in this space. And now, let me take the cat out of the bag also. There are some investment vehicles also, but we always talk about that in Q&A and much later. But the idea is clean energy. Okay. Now, please move further. Solar capacity is going to double. Yes. The outlook, this is for renewables, is more positive for India and for the developing economies. Okay. And why? Because the country, by the way, India is on track. Can you move your cursor there so we know exactly where you are what I'm speaking of. The country is on track to meet its 2030 target. Okay, every word means profit for us. I mean, as an investor, if we think from that hat, the country is on track to meet its 2030 target. Point number one, and that's why I repeated it. Point number two, we are going to become the second largest growth market for renewables. Okay, and capacity is set to rise by 2.5 times in 5 years. So just think about it. So, they're talking about the world and India. So we will keep alternating the world and India, the world and India. So please move forward. Let's move further and down in this report. Okay, now what is this? Renewable electricity capacity additions. Now, again, this is very interesting. Okay, something I wanted to show you here. What's happening is, look at the look at the current situation. Okay, so in about 2019, if you just look at the whole bar, okay, as it is, this whole bar. Let me make my color red so you're able to understand. This entire bar was somewhere at about 200 gigawatts. Okay, and this is 2019. So by 2025, we are already somewhere around 700. Look at the kind of growth. This is already 3x that has happened. And now what they are talking is that in the next 5 years, we have no choice but to grow another 2.5 times this. So I say about another 3 times this. If we are at about 800 gigawatts, this is gigawatts of power, at least 3 times, which is 2,400 gigawatts. But the global target was what? 4,600. So it's actually not even 3 times. If I go from 800 to 4,600, it is actually a multiplier of 6x. That is the amount of renewable power that we need in the whole world. And like I said, India is going to be 10% party to this whole thing. Okay, let's move further, please. We don't want to go into the technicalities, but it's important to know, what's really happening. Okay, now this is very interesting. See, we may feel whatever government and everything, right? Focus on India. This is India. Okay, we will first talk about India, then we'll talk about others. This particular lower bar, okay, the sky blue bar, this is what we were in terms of gigawatts in 2023. Just imagine, 2023 we were here, okay, about 15. And now this is additions, capacity additions. This is not the total capacity. This is how much we increased. In 3 years, from about 15, now we are adding as much as almost 50 gigawatts. This is India is adding 3 times. And in how much time period? 2 years. It's all very quietly happening. And some of you are in the power industry will understand. And of course, we'll also hear from you in a little while. But it's already happening. Now, this scale, very interesting. Look at this scale. It's from 0 to 90. So most of the countries, including United States, we are all in this zone, okay? In the sense, we are increasing our power additions by 40 gigawatts, 50 gigawatts, 60 gigawatts. Now, the funny thing, now let me just eliminate all my drawings. Now let's come to China, just for you to get a comparison, okay? Where is China? China has a different scale. China was already at 300 gigawatts, more than the whole world put together in 2023. And by 25, which is basically, last year, they have already installed as much as 500 gigawatts. I mean, more than the whole world pretty much put together. So can you imagine the speed at which China is actually building its renewable and clean energy capacity? I mean, it's no surprise, right? If you think about it, that tomorrow, if US is going to lose its domination around the world, who's going to be the next leader? We look at the speed at which they are building capacities. It's enormous. I mean, we are building 50 gigawatts a year. They are talking 500 gigawatts a year. I mean, it's a completely different scale. It's a mind-boggling scale at which China is working. Okay, let's move forward. There's so much happening. Everybody is doing something or the other in this whole area. I mean, these red bars are nothing but, basically China doing so much again. So skip this. Let's go to the next places where we've done some markings. Yeah. For the European Union, the accelerate case demonstrate 30% upside potential. Basically, what they are saying is, the growth is going to be 30%. So for some of you who are in Europe and who want to invest in Europe, that's an opportunity in Europe also. India's renewable capacity there below, they say it could rise by about 70%, and under the accelerated case. So which means we also are going to grow enormously well, despite all the policy and the red tape, the bureaucracy, and all of that. Let's move forward. And there is something, renewables will become the largest global energy source. Think about it. Today, all the electricity that we're getting is from coal-fired plants and hydro plants and things like that. But within 5 years, the world is going to have 50% of its energy, which will come from all renewable resources. Nothing from coal. I mean, the remaining will be from coal-fired. But then that means by 2040 or 45, maybe we could see a scenario where pretty much the whole world is going to only have renewable energy, and therefore think about the opportunity that's there in front of us. Massive, right? The whole world, it's like a different revolution. It's not in our face, but it's happening in a very big way. So let's move forward. Come, let's move forward. Yeah. Now, look at this. For all of us who believe that, EV may be there, may not be there, whether there are enough EV stations or not, renewable energy transportation, this is global, is going to be 50% by 2030. And 2030, we're not talking 2040 or 2050. In the next 5 years, if half the cars become, on electric, just think about it, whether it's electric or whether it's hydrogen or liquid biofuels or whatever they're going to do. But basically, the intention is that half the vehicles that are going to run on this planet are going to be, electric. I mean, this is a very respected agency. It's a worldwide agency. You can download the report for anyone else who's interested. We are very happy to circulate this report to you. We were fortunate to find this report. And there is tons and tons of knowledge and information in this report. We've only highlighted some points because of the limited time that we have here. All right, let's move forward. So let's come back to our, India's perspective. Let's see what's happening in India in the light of this whole thing. Can you put the presentation back? Thank you. Very nice. Right. So now this is our problem. So for India, okay, while we have this on this 174 billion, I just remembered something else which I want to show. Can you show the Google sheet on the data that we collected for the annual data? Now, this is very interesting, friends. Okay. While you're preparing, you can close the screen share. Okay. Can you bring the Google sheet? Do you have it ready? Okay, very nice. Yes, okay. This is very interesting. Okay, you move your cursor and can you increase the size a little bit more? Yeah. Can you just zoom out a little bit more so everybody's able to see this? Friends, now this is what is happening, okay? Yeah, very nice. Very good. Thank you. This is very good. See, we spoke about this thing in the last MMF also. Okay. It's very interesting here. Look at oil. This entire column is talking about oil. Okay. What are we importing? So, and this is the data of the last 10 years. So 71 billion dollars worth of oil. Okay. So if you look at the average, we have been somewhere around 100 for all these years. And then let's see what happened from 23. From 100 average, we just shot up to 150. So you might feel, why are things becoming so expensive? Why is the cost of real estate suddenly going up? Or why is this 1 crore property suddenly at 1 crore 50? So we think, oh, there's growth in the real estate market, there's growth here, growth there. But no, sometimes it's inflation adjustment. Look at the growth. So from 2017 till about 2022, the average import bill for us was about 100, if I just kind of mathematically add these numbers. And that is just shot up to $158 billion in 23. And then thankfully it just became a little bit more mediocre, 130 again for FY 24 and 25. And 26 is a little bit of an estimate. Although this 189 is a bit of an estimate, but it's somewhere around 150 to 180, which basically means that literally, if you look at the average of the 5 years from 2017 to 22, and then the 5 years from 22 to 26, the oil import bill has gone up by 50%. So it's no wonder, no? I mean, our Prime Minister comes and tells us that, stop traveling, don't do destination weddings, don't do this, don't do that. Because the problem is that anything that we want to do, anything that we in India wish to do. The problem is that we just don't have any material. We just don't have anything that we can do on our own. And in the sense, if we are completely dependent on oil from everybody else, then what are we going to do about it? There's no choice. We just have to import this oil continuously. And because we have to import this oil continuously, the problem is that we don't have a choice, and our import bill keeps rising. And because it keeps rising, we have no choice but to be subject to inflation, be subject to all the problems that we are anyways having. All right, come back and show me the Google slide, please. Uh, there's something else I want to show you. This is also very interesting. So the oil problem is very well pronounced. That the oil bill is kind of gone up almost 50% over the last 5-year average. So that's where we're spending so much more on oil. Look at what is happening to gold, incidentally. 10 years back, we were importing, 10 years back, we were importing about $34 billion of gold. And today, that gold import has kind of gone up to almost, as you can see, something like $72 billion. It kind of doubled, right? So again, this is again the reason why the Prime Minister is saying, okay, you know what, please protect dollars, because we need all these dollars to buy oil. Now, instead of oil, if you're going to spend the dollars buying gold, then we don't produce gold also, so we have to import our gold. Now, on top of that, you're traveling, you're spending money, children are studying abroad, etc., etc. All of that is happening. So that's why they're saying, please protect the dollars. Although I don't exactly and 100% agree with that philosophy, my philosophy is slightly different, and a lot of you are familiar. So my thing is, let's look at not about how to cut costs, but let's look about how to increase revenue. You build your tourism, bring more people inside. You allow people to do business. We do foreign investments, and you tax the foreign investments lesser. People make profits abroad and bring the profits back. These are the kind of things that one would think is also a good idea. We can't always just think in terms of saving mode, but sometimes we have to think in a slightly different mode as well. And that kind of mode could also be more profitable, right? So this is what's happening. And then, of course, there is FDI also. This is incident. This is really sad, but because this data already has this FDI flows. This is the what foreign portfolio investors have been investing or not investing. So first time in about 10, 11 years, there is a negative, which means they have sold more and they have taken out more dollars than what they brought in. And that's the other concern. So, we are getting hit on dollars from three sides. Oil being the biggest, gold being the second, and foreign investors taking out the money, that's the third. So unfortunately, but this is where we are. So this is how critical it is that, ye sab chodo, if we have to become Atmanirbhar, come back to the presentation. We have absolutely no choice but to become self-reliant. So rather, I would hazard a guess to say that the Indian government would be having some sort of a war room. We are not aware about it, but they will be having this war room where they need to make sure that in 5 years we need to, double, triple, quadruple our capacity. Because if this doesn't happen, then I don't see, how this country will progress. But if we have to progress, this has to happen. If this has to happen, there is a fabulous opportunity standing in front of us. So let's move forward. Okay, next. Yes, we spoke about this. Let's go forward. Yes, we spoke about this import bill also. Let's move forward. So, yes, continue. I just want to, bring me to that. Show me the next slide. 1 second, please. Okay, this is 53. Yeah, we already spoke that 50% of this power is going to be, all the automobile power is going to be India. Can you show me the graph of the historical of this? Continue, please, continue. Yeah. Now, why this sector? Show me the graph. Very interesting. Yes, this is what I was looking for. Thank you. Now, I just want to spend a couple of minutes here, friends. Very interesting little piece of data here. See, there is a very interesting index that BSE has created. It's called the BSE Clean Environment Index. Okay. Now, in this clean energy or clean environment index, of course, there is a bunch of companies, and the index has been very recently made. But there is it's a very easy way to do back-tested technology. What you can do is, using technology, you can say that, okay, if I were to buy these companies, 5 years back or 10 years back or 15 years back, based on the parameters that you see above. And these parameters are companies that were, in the business of renewable energy here. Let me mark it for you. I mean, renewable energy, basically solar, wind, hydro, green, and hydrogen. If they were in this particular area, companies that were manufacturing electric vehicles, companies that were into water management, treatment, distribution, conservation, etc., and recycling businesses. So all these things are obviously leading to lesser heat in the atmosphere, lesser carbon production, and it helps to reduce the temperature of the planet. First, control it and then reduce it. So now, what this thing has done is we were fortunate to find out this little historical chart, and this chart shows that in 2017, if this index was born, okay, and it was at a average level of, as you can see somewhere here, this is a level of approximately 1,000 points on the index. Okay, watch it very carefully. This is a back tested data, but very interesting data, right? And we checked it from 1717 to 2726, which is obviously about 10 years. In 10 years, friends, this index has gone up from 1,000 to, let's look at this thing. The highest it went was 9,400, as you can see in this September 2024. But even today, as we speak, this is somewhere around 8,000. Can you imagine? 8x 10 years. This was a absolutely jaw-dropping kind of a moment and opportunity. See, these companies were there. This index was not there. And now that this index is there, so we, of course, have used BSC's analysis and their information. But just look at the kind of growth that this sector has already done in the last 10 years. And then they are saying that the next 5 years is going to be that much more growth. And think about it, our growth is absolutely like mediocre growth compared to China's growth. China is growing. So if we are going to go at double, China is doing 10 times X. I mean, just think about the opportunity there. So if somebody can invest in China and if we can buy these kind of energy companies in China, we'd probably make a lot more money than what we'll make in India. But come on, even 8x in 10 years by no yardstick is a small achievement. It is a fabulous opportunity. So now can you go back one slide, please? Now can you go to the sectors so that we get a better understanding? One more. Yeah, this one. Stay there. So basically, what this index is talking about is he's talking about 5 clean environment pillars. Very interesting index. We did some study and we loved it. So we thought we'll share it with you. 86% is renewables. Now, within renewables, what he's doing is, I would say that this about 60% of this 86% would be nothing but solar and related. Because like I said, right, we have a whole airport, like Cochin Airport is running on solar. We have one of the biggest solar installations in our deserts in Rajasthan, and it's going to keep expanding. It's already happening in Saudi Arabia. It's happening in Russia. It's happening everywhere. China has already done that. I think the largest farm is now in China. I mean, we thought we had once upon a time one of the biggest ones, but now it's China because the speed at which they are growing. So if you have empty land, if you have barren land, then this is the most obvious thing to do. And then, this power keeps coming in, and then there is another whole business of power storage. Okay, because once this power is generated during the day, you can't lose it. You have to store this power somewhere. So then storage becomes a very huge opportunity again. So in that sense, there is so much and more that we have to generate from this opportunity, and which is why we thought we'll share this opportunity with you. So I'm going to kind of stop there and take some more discussion and questions. I don't want to, because there's a lot of technical data in this. We don't want to talk so much of technical, but can you just close this presentation? You can stop the live streaming, and we will have a little conversation with everybody.